So it's time to add the collage the pieces of jelly print onto the paper. So I've made two outlines of durdle door in Dorset. One of them I'm going to stick the pieces of paper on, and one of them I'm going to cut up and use as a to measure the pieces. So I've got a picture of durdle door in front of me in colour, and I'm going to look at it to try and gauge the colours. These are all my pieces that I made using the Gelli Plate, and lots of different textures, lots of different colours. And I'm going to look through them all and try and match them to the colours in the picture. Well, not match them exactly, they're not going to be realistic, it's going to be an abstract. And so I've got lots to choose from here, giving myself a large choice. One of the problems is I want to do a large sky, and I want to do a large sky, and the pieces that I've made, my Gelli Plate is only about 8 inches, whereas this is longer. So I've decided, instead of collaging the sky into lots of different pieces, I'm going to paint it. So I'm cutting off the sky first of all, and I'm going to cut out all the different shapes, and I'm going to measure them, and I'm going to write on each one what they are and put a number on it corresponding with the one in the picture. A bit like paint your own paint by numbers. So especially the pieces that are very tiny, as I'm going to do them as I go along. So I'm cutting off the sky, and I'm going to paint the sky first. I'm going to use acrylic paint for the sky, and then I'm going to use glue and cut out pieces of the paper for the rest of the collage. So I divided up the pieces of Gelli Plate print into hot colours, cold colours, dark tones, pale tones, and there's a section of blue ones, and a section with browns and reds. I want to use the hottest colours closest to me, to like the beach area is going to be hot tones, and the where the sun is hitting durdle door, I'm going to make that one a warm tone. So there you go, I'm measuring them against each other, make sure that they both are the same. And one of them, piece of paper, is a bit bigger, so cutting that off. So I drew these, and what I did was I traced one picture first of all, and then instead of tracing the same picture again, I traced my tracing to try and get them as even as possible. And now what I'm going to do is just cut that up into little pieces bit by bit, and then cut around each piece onto the colour that I want to use in that area, and then stick that piece down. So I'm going to start off with cutting durdle door away from the sea. So I've cut off the sky and the sea and then the beach. Cut it into 3 large sections. So that's the back bit of beach there. And that's the front bit of beach. So it's a beautiful beach, curved beach. If you walk out of the house and turn left and walk up the path, it takes about 3/4 of an hour. You come to the top of the headland overlooking this, where the picture was taken from, and then if you walk down, you're on the beach, and it takes about an hour to get to Durdle Door Beach from the house. So here we go, a bit of ultramarine blue, some white, making it paler towards the bottom. If you look at the horizon, line, it's usually paler towards the bottom where the cloud and pollution affect the colour, and then darker towards the top of the sky. So just doing a generic sky. I might decide to collage over the sky at a later date. I have a bigger Gelli Plate and I might make some bigger pieces. At the moment, no, we're just putting in a generic sky. Bit of sea at the back. So what I'm doing now is I'm just putting in some of the areas to show which colours belong where. Don't have to do this. You could just work straight onto the collage, the area, but I decided to just keep painting. I like painting, and I'm just helping myself with some examples of tone and colour. Sort of like, right, this bit goes here, this bit goes here. And it can be easier if you add more of the colours in, or you can end up just with a big painting. So it's up to you where you stop. It's such a nice feeling to just paint, and especially when you do a quick one like this where it doesn't matter. So I've added this, the sea is a bit more turquoise. I wanted to differentiate between the colours. And then we've got the froth on the waves. So that's probably about enough colour there. I might show where the highlights need to go as well. And I do this if I'm doing a portrait. I'll start by adding the darks and lights and then some of the tone. And it's like, right, here are the highlights. So this is where the sun's going to hit it. Now, I'm using a gold here, and I wish I'd had a gold piece. I might make one using some gold paint, but I've only got a sort of beige colour. So I'm going to use a beige colour over where all those gold areas are, and perhaps come back with a brighter gold one at a later stage. Cutting out the piece of froth at the moment, different sections. So you're going to cut each piece out, and then you're going to put it against a piece that you're going to use to collage. So I'm choosing now which bits are going to be the sea and which bits are going to be the froth. So I've gone for the very palest, pale blue with lots of texture to be the froth. Again, it's a problem that they're such small pieces. I'm going to have to do more than one piece to cover that large stretch of froth. And you can collage it in little sections, or you can just chop it up into a couple, which is what I'm going to do. If I had enough paper to cover the whole sky, then, and I had a large gel plate, then you could also do take a print of the collage by inking over it, which is what I've done with the one with texture. So I made another one, which will be on a different video. I made another one using fabric and materials, and all in shades of red, and I put those on top of the outline, and then I printed them so I was looking at the textured shapes instead of the tones. And sometimes the original can be prettier than the print that you make out of it, and once you've inked it up, it changes colour. So it depends whether you see the collage as the work of art or the print that you make from it. So this one at the moment I'm just making as a collage, not to print. So the end result will be what's on this page, not what I print from it. So I'm making the darks now. Again, like I do if I'm doing a portrait, I look for the dark and light areas first. I'm putting in the dark areas because it's important to have that differentiation of tone. So now I'm cutting out the sea. It's good to have a lot of pieces to choose from. Because sometimes the shape that you want, you might have to put it across diagonally, and then you've used up a lot of your piece. So you can make 2 or 3 of a similar one. Yes, I like that colour, that's nice. So that one, it's got hints of turquoise in for the water. Getting out a bit of foam at the end there. You can do it with a craft knife, or you can do it with scissors, or you can do it with a combination of both. I'm using scissors because I find them quicker, and then just using the craft knife for the tricky bits that I can't get round properly with the scissors. So I cut out a hole there to go over the top of where the dark area is and let that show through underneath it. Right, adding a bit of glue. I'm using a Pritt stick. You can use any glue that you like. There we go, putting down the C. So we've got the dark area at the back to give it depth. And then cutting out the bit to go around the back of the piece of rock, which is a slightly different shade. So looking for a different part of the blue. Okay, so that's going to be that bit there. And it's going to have all the reflections showing through. So I'm going to save that for later and cut out several pieces first, and then add the sea in over the top, because obviously the sea is one of the most important pieces. I like the way that the textured colours and the combinations of colours, they give it a bit of depth rather than just a plain blue painted area. They have some areas of interest in them, and it gives it a look of shiny water with depth. So this activity, huge amount of cutting out. The last bit of the activity, huge amount of printing and scraping into the prints. There we go, there's a nice piece of water. That all fits together very well. I find it very enjoyable making the jelly prints, and you can never have too many. You can always save them for another project afterwards. So the more you print out, the more you have to choose from for your projects. So I'm going to be saving quite a few of the pieces. So now I'm looking for which might be good for sand, which might be good for froth. So I'm using a very warm colour for the front piece of sand. This is going to be the warmest piece on the collage, because I want the eye to be drawn to that front section to give an idea of 3D effect, of depth. So the hottest colour, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, are going to be near the front, and the cooler colours are at the back, the sky and the rocks. And then on the rocks there's going to be little flashes of beige where the light hits it. So there we go, that immediately brings the eye to the front. And then there's a piece at the back. Now it can't be exactly the same shade, because that will make the picture look too flat. So it needs to be either colder or darker. So I'm trying out the different colours, different textures. Nope, can't be that one because it's too similar. It could be an area of that one though. So going for a slightly purpley shade, because it's darker, it's got more blue in it, and that makes it sink back. It makes the eye go back. So, but it's got some similar colours, so you can see that it's part of the same bit that's at the front. It's just in shade. Looking for another section that is not quite as dark, because it's not in the shadow, but it's not as strong a colour as the one at the front. I want to create depth. So I was looking for a slightly darker or slightly bluer version of the one at the front. And then that matches onto the purple, and then hopefully it will take your eye round and look like that section of the beach curves round. Even though we can't really see the curve of it, you get the impression that it curves. Now I'm looking for something that's going to be where the sunlight areas are. So this is going to be the rocky land. So it's strong sun in the picture on certain parts of the rock. And those are all going to be in this same beigey colour. And maybe at another point in the future, I will make a gold one. I have some gold paint. I might make some gold collage paper. You can always add some later. You can always add some at a later date. And if you haven't got one in a particular shade that you'd like, make one. But I won't be doing it in this session. But I might at some point, because yes, it works. It's a nice beige colour, but it doesn't seem quite right. It sort of jumps forward too much compared to the beach. So I might adjust this at a later date. Now I'm looking for a shadow, but what I've done is taken a piece that's the same colour as this, that has some black over the top of it. So it's got some of the same base colour. Starting to get into the smaller sections now. Quite tricky to cut out. There we go. So that's going to be a shadow. I could sit for hours, and I have done many a time, sit for hours looking at the strata of the rock at Durdle. If you go behind this, where you take this picture from, if you go behind the actual archway and onto the beach that's at the back of Durdle, because there are two beaches there. There's this one in front of Durdle that curves around with the iconic view. And then if you go to the back part of it, you can't see the archway, but you can see this amazing structure of the rocks where they've all bent and folded and collapsed in on each other. And I'm trying to capture these stripes and the strata of the rock using the different tones. But it's sort of getting an abstract feel as well. So it doesn't need to be realistic. It's just a picture, not a copy of exactly what was there in front of me. So different tones. They're all slightly colder than the ones in front. So good for the well-being doing a collage. You can get into the zone. You're not thinking about anything else apart from the colours, the tones, the textures, and you can just give your mind a break from all the troubles going on in your life, if you have troubles, and you can just sit there and collect pieces of tone and texture and stick them down on top of each other as if you're a 5-year-old. And it's very rewarding. I very much enjoy getting into a long session. So I tried cutting out a couple of different shapes. I didn't like the first one. The first one was more purple, like the shadow of the beach at the bottom, and I rejected that one. When I actually cut it all out and held it over, I thought, no, it doesn't look quite right, and tried out something different. And you can do that. If when you finish, you think, not happy with something, then you can just come back and alter it by make another Gelli Plate piece, let it dry, and then stick it over the top. So bringing out my dark tones here. I like the texture in that piece because the rocks are so rugged and they're ancient. This is the Jurassic Coast. It's the start of one of the best walks in England, and absolutely beautiful. And one of the reasons it's one of the best walks in England, some people would say the best. One of the reasons it is because of these fantastic structures, these rock structures that you can look at as you walk. I was thinking when I put this on that it might be a bit too pale. Maybe it should have been a bit darker than that, but I like it all the same. Now I'm going to put some highlights out, cut them out, stick them on. And again, you might think in the future, I'll make that a bit darker. Might make another Gelli Plate that's a darker version of what I've used and come back and stick it on. And the same with the highlights. I might make a more golden version. Because this piece might have been good for the sand, and another piece, a more golden piece, for the highlights. So it's moving along quite well now. You can really see Durdle Door. So I need to concentrate on the highlights and the darks now. So put the highlights on where the sun was shining, where it catches the rock. So the sun is top right. Even though it's not in the picture, you can feel that it's up there because of the angle that all these lights are hitting the rock. So I'm thinking everything on the right-hand side is going to be catching the sun. So there's even going to be a little bit underneath it that is catching the sun on the water, a reflection of the rock. And some of it's the shadow where the rock's in the way. Right, so doing the deeper parts of the sea. And I thought, rather than having the same blue, make it a deeper colour to indicate that the water's changing in that area. It's not shallow anymore. Lowest Cove, which is just behind here, you can walk from Lowest Cove to Durdle Door. Lowest Cove is a bay that's just behind there, and it's incredibly deep. There are photographs in the local pubs and restaurants that show, oh, cat in the way. Every single one I do, she always does this. And there are photographs showing these very large ships in the bay where the water becomes really deep very quickly. So there we go. That's the finished painting, well, not painting, the finished collage. All the different sections of the rock. And you can see the sky peeping through. And then let everything dry. And there it is.